It was just after 3 a.m. when she heard the thud, barely audible, like something soft hitting the floor. Most people would have ignored it, but not her, and that one decision changed everything. The Driftwood Pines Motel sat along a lonely stretch of Route 12, its neon vacancy sign flickering against a black sky. Most nights nothing happened here, just truckers, lonely travelers, and the hum of vending machines. That night was no different until Rosa Alvarez, the 32-year-old night cleaner, noticed something strange. Room 108's door was slightly ajar. A soft grunt came from inside. Her hand hesitated on the knob. She wasn't supposed to open guest rooms, but something felt wrong. Inside, the room reeked of stale air and sweat. A man in his late 30s, shirt soaked through, was collapsed beside the bed. He was pale, trembling, lips cracked. Rosa froze for a beat, then instinct took over. Rosa knelt beside him, her worn sneakers crunching on discarded painkillers. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes flickered open, unfocused. "Help, water," he rasped. She rushed to the bathroom, filled a plastic cup and held it to his lips. His hand shook so hard she had to hold it for him. "Stay with me, okay?" she whispered, placing 2 fingers on his wrist. Her father had taught her that trick. She wasn't a nurse, but she knew danger when she saw it. Rosa grabbed the motel phone and called the front desk. "Call an ambulance. Room 108, now." The manager, always grumpy during night shifts, grumbled about liabilities and protocols. Rosa didn't care. She stayed by the man's side, wetting a washcloth and pressing it to his forehead. He was burning up. Between checking his breathing and wiping his brow, Rosa kept talking to him. "What's your name?" No answer. "Okay, just squeeze my hand if you can hear me." A weak twitch. That was enough. She sat with him until red and blue lights finally lit up the empty parking lot. The EMTs moved fast, asking questions Rosa couldn't answer. "Relation to the patient?" "No, I clean the rooms." One of them gave her a surprised look before nodding in gratitude. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, the man finally whispered, "Thank you, Rosa." She blinked. She hadn't told him her name. Before she could ask how he knew, he was gone, wheeled out into the cool night. Rosa cleaned room 108 the next day. His wallet was gone, so were his bags, but he'd left a ring. Not just any ring, a signet inlaid with gold and emeralds. Rosa took it to the front desk. "Lost item," she said, but something nagged at her. A week later, a guest showed Rosa a newspaper article. "That guy in 108 looks like him." The headline, "Billionaire heir disappears days before high-profile wedding." The photo matched. Same green eyes, same chiseled jaw, same ring. Rosa's breath caught. His name was Adrian Beaumont, son of tech tycoon Harrison Beaumont. He was worth billions and set to marry the daughter of a European diplomat. The article suggested he'd vanished to avoid the wedding. But why end up at a budget motel, alone and sick? Rosa returned to her usual shifts. No one spoke of Adrian again, but she couldn't forget him, not because he was rich, but because of how human he looked in that moment, fragile, scared, just like her father had looked before he passed. 2 weeks later, the motel received a letter addressed to "the cleaner who saved me." Inside was a note. "You didn't see wealth. You saw a person. You saved me when no one else would. I owe you more than you know." AB along with the letter was a check. The amount, $250,000. Rosa nearly fainted. Rosa stared at the check for hours. Was it right to accept it? She hadn't helped him for money. She'd done it because it was the human thing to do. But she also couldn't deny what that money could do: pay off debts, move her mother out of public housing, maybe even send her son to college. 2 weeks after the letter and the life-altering check arrived, Rosa thought the story had ended. She never expected to see him again. Not really. Yet one afternoon, as she wheeled the laundry cart across the parking lot, a familiar figure stepped out of a dusty rental car. It was him, Adrian Beaumont. No entourage, no designer coat, just a man in jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie, looking almost too normal. Rosa's breath caught in her throat. "You came back," she said, blinking as if to make sure he was real. "I had to," Adrian replied. "There's something I needed to say face to face." And just like that, the moment that had changed both their lives opened a new chapter neither of them had expected. They sat outside beneath the creaking wooden awning of the motel. The vending machine hummed nearby as the sun began its descent. Adrian opened up slowly. Like someone who hadn't spoken his truth in years, he told Rosa about his suffocating life. The cold estate he called home, the business meetings that replaced birthdays, the engagement that was never really a choice. "I didn't even know I was sick. I just knew I had to run," he said. "I thought disappearing might give me freedom, but I nearly disappeared for good." Rosa listened without judgment. She didn't interrupt or pry. Her silence was understanding, not empty. When he was done, he looked at her and said, "That night you didn't see a name, you saw a soul. You saved me." Adrian wasn't offering flowers or romance yet. He had something deeper in mind. He leaned forward, hands clasped. "I want to start something," he said. "A foundation, one that recognizes people like you, the silent workers, the ones always overlooked." Rosa tilted her head. "What kind of foundation?" "One that trains hotel staff in emergency response, offers scholarships, mental health resources, recognition. A real investment in people who keep places like this running. I want you to lead it with me." Rosa blinked. She cleaned motel rooms at night. She wasn't a CEO, but something in her heart whispered, "Why not you?" She'd done more than most by simply caring. Maybe it was time the world knew that mattered. Rosa accepted, not out of ambition, but purpose. With the foundation's startup grant, she moved into a modest apartment in the city, bringing her aging mother and young son along. Her first office had no window and barely fit a desk, but it was hers. She poured herself into the work. She knew what cleaners, night clerks, and dishwashers endured. The long hours, the disrespect, the invisibility. Rosa traveled across cities, talking to workers, forming focus groups, building the first official curriculum. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving, she was building something. And every time doubt crept in, she remembered the man who saw in her not a maid, but a miracle. With visibility came complications. Media outlets picked up her story. Some were inspired, others skeptical. Online trolls called her a gold digger, suggesting she used Adrian for fame or fortune. At one event, a woman whispered loud enough for Rosa to hear, "She's just a cleaner who got lucky." Those words stung even when she tried to ignore them. But Rosa stood firm. Her work spoke louder. She didn't need validation, she had impact. And Adrian, he always stood beside her, publicly and privately. "Let them talk," he said once. "We're building something real, something lasting." That truth and her growing team of supporters reminded Rosa that the loudest voices weren't always the right ones. Adrian, too, was changing. The pressure of legacy, the burden of family expectations, it all became noise. He handed over his stake in the family company, walked away from boardrooms, and committed fully to the Rosa Initiative. His speeches became impassioned. "We glorify CEOs and athletes," he told a crowd. "But it was a motel cleaner who saved my life, not a doctor, not a politician." Think about that. The world began to take notice. Other service workers came forward with stories of saving lives in silence. Nurses, aides, janitors, waitresses. Adrian was no longer a runaway billionaire. He was something rarer, a man who listened, changed, and lifted others along the way. Working side by side forged something quiet but powerful between them. Shared purpose blossomed into long talks over takeout and late-night calls about upcoming projects. They debated logistics, laughed over delivery mishaps, and shared frustrations about bureaucracy. One night, while reviewing training modules, Rosa caught him watching her. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. "Just you make this feel possible." Rosa smiled, heart thudding in her chest. She didn't reply, she didn't have to. Something unspoken passed between them, deep and respectful. Neither rushed it. After all, what they were building wasn't just a foundation, it was trust, resilience, and maybe even love. At a national event for service worker advocacy, Adrian took the stage. Dozens of frontline workers, from janitors to hotel staff, filled the auditorium. Rosa watched from the front row, humbled by how far they'd come. Adrian spoke not as a billionaire, but as someone changed. "This initiative exists because someone saw a sick man, not a status. Someone who stayed, even when it wasn't her job." Then he looked directly at her. "I owe my life to that act, and I think I love her for it." The room gasped. Cameras flashed. Rosa's eyes welled with tears, not from embarrassment but from the truth of it. It wasn't about romance or spectacle. It was about recognition, the kind that went soul deep. 2 years later, the Rosa Initiative operates in 19 major cities, with over 500 trained emergency responders in the hospitality sector. Rosa oversees policy development and storytelling programs that honor everyday heroes. She's spoken at global summits, been featured in documentaries, and even addressed the UN on invisible labor. Adrian writes and travels, spreading their mission far and wide. His memoir, The Man in Room 108, hits bestseller lists. The dedication reads, "For the woman who stayed. They're not married, they're not rushing anything, but they live together in a quiet home just outside the city, with her mother, her son, and a shared dream of changing the world, one kind act at a time." That night in room 108 could have gone unnoticed. Rosa could have walked past. She could have followed protocol and done nothing. But she didn't. She chose compassion over comfort, humanity over hesitation, and in doing so, she didn't just save a life, she sparked a revolution, a movement that said, kindness matters, invisible workers matter, everyone matters. We tell ourselves that change comes from grand gestures, but often it begins in the quietest places, in a mop bucket hallway at 3 a.m. when someone simply chooses to care. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe. There's more to come, because the world still needs reminders of what kindness can do.